Olivia's hand trembled as she gripped the small, worn book of scripture, her white wedding gown billowing around her swollen middle in the warm June breeze of 1876. The small church in Cimarron, New Mexico Territory, was adorned with wild flowers and ribbons, the pews filled with townsfolk who now whispered behind raised hands. The clock on the wall showed 20 minutes past the hour, 20 minutes since Preston Williams should have appeared to make her his wife. "He ain't coming," whispered Martha Turner loud enough for Emma to hear from the front of the church. The older woman's voice carried no sympathy, only the satisfaction of confirmed suspicion. Emma's father, George Olivia, stood from his seat in the front pew, his weathered face flushed with anger beneath his graying hair. "That no good snake," he muttered, moving to his daughter's side. "Emma, darlin', I think we should." The church doors burst open, and a young boy no older than 12 ran in, clutching a crumpled piece of paper. "Miss Emma," he called out, his voice echoing in the suddenly silent church. "Miss Emma, I found this at the stagecoach station." The note, hastily scrawled in Preston's distinctive handwriting, contained only 5 words. "I can't marry you. Goodbye." Emma swayed on her feet as the room began to spin. 4 months pregnant, abandoned at the altar, she could hear the cruel whispers intensifying around her. Her father's arm tightened around her waist, but it wasn't enough to stop her knees from buckling beneath the weight of her shame and heartbreak. "That's enough gawking," came a deep, commanding voice from the back of the church. The crowd parted as Owen Steele made his way down the aisle, his spurs jingling with each deliberate step. At 32, the rancher was known throughout the territory for his fair dealings and hard work, his Broken Arrow Ranch one of the most successful operations for 50 miles. Owen's eyes, the clear blue of a winter sky, met Emma's tear-filled gaze. Without hesitation, he removed his hat and knelt before her, taking her trembling hand in his calloused one. "Miss Olivia," he said, his voice carrying easily through the hushed church, "I know this isn't how you pictured your wedding day, but I want you to know that you and your child ain't alone in this world." He squeezed her fingers gently. "I'll be there for both of you." The whispers erupted anew, but Owen paid them no mind as he helped Emma to her feet. "Let me take you home," he said quietly. "You need rest." The June sun beat down mercilessly as Owen escorted Emma and her father from the church to their waiting wagon. The 21-year-old bride's face was pale beneath her veil, her shoulders slumped in defeat. "Mr. Steele," George Olivia began, his voice rough with emotion. "I appreciate your kindness, but it's no trouble, sir," Owen interrupted, helping Emma onto the wagon seat. "Preston Williams wasn't worthy of your daughter, never was." He adjusted his hat against the glaring sun. "I'll come by tomorrow to see how she's faring, if that's acceptable." Emma finally found her voice, though it emerged as little more than a whisper. "Why would you help me?" "The whole town will talk." Owen's weathered face softened. "Let them talk. I've never much cared for gossip." He handed her the reins. "Tomorrow, then." As the wagon pulled away, Emma clutched her small bouquet of wildflowers, the petals already wilting in the heat. The life she had planned with Preston, the mercantile owner's son, with his promises of security and respectability, had vanished in an instant. She placed a protective hand over her rounded belly, wondering what would become of them now. Owen Steele stood in the dusty street watching until the wagon disappeared around the bend. Sheriff Tom Cooper approached, lighting a cigarette. "That was quite a declaration, Owen," he remarked. "You sure about this?" Owen retrieved his horse from the hitching post. "As sure as the sun rises, Tom, that woman deserves better than what life's dealt her." The sheriff exhaled a cloud of smoke. "Preston's been skimming from his daddy's store for months. Reckon he finally took enough to run." He studied Owen's face. "This have anything to do with what happened to Sarah?" Owen's jaw tightened. "This has nothing to do with the past. Miss Olivia needs help, and I'm offering it, that's all." He mounted his horse with practiced ease. "I'd best be getting back to the ranch. Cattle won't feed themselves." As he rode through town, Owen was aware of the stares following him. Cimarron wasn't large, barely 500 souls, and by sundown, everyone would know of his promise to Emma Olivia. His foreman, Miguel Ramirez, would have questions. So would Jasmine Cooper, the sheriff's sister who had set her cap for Owen these past 2 years. None of that mattered now. When he'd seen Emma standing alone in her wedding dress, something had stirred in him, a protective instinct he thought had died along with his wife and unborn child 3 years earlier. He couldn't explain it, even to himself, but he knew with certainty that he needed to help this woman and her baby. The Olivia homestead was modest but well-tended, a small house and barn nestled against the foothills east of town. George Olivia had come west after losing his wife to fever, bringing 10-year-old Emma and whatever possessions would fit in a wagon. Through hard work, he'd established a respectable carpentry business, crafting furniture prized throughout the territory. Emma had met Preston Williams when he'd come to commission a bookcase for his mother's birthday. His handsome face and smooth words had charmed the young woman who had known little male attention in isolated Cimarron. When she discovered her pregnancy 3 months after their courtship began, Preston had proposed immediately, seeming, to everyone's surprise, eager to marry. Now, as Emma changed from her wedding dress into a simple calico, she wondered if he had ever intended to go through with it, or if he'd been planning his escape all along. "You should eat something," her father said from the doorway, holding a plate of biscuits. His eyes were rimmed with red, his shoulders bent with worry. "Keep up your strength," Emma shook her head. "I couldn't possibly." George set the plate down anyway. "That Cowboy Steele, do you know him well?" "Hardly at all," Emma admitted. "He comes into town occasionally for supplies. Always tips his hat, speaks politely. Beyond that." She trailed off, remembering the intensity in Owen's blue eyes as he'd made his declaration. Her father sat heavily on the edge of her bed. "His wife died some years back, complication with her pregnancy from what I heard. He keeps to himself mostly, runs that ranch of his." He patted Emma's hand awkwardly. "He seems a decent sort." "It doesn't matter," Emma said, turning to the window. "I won't be accepting his charity." George's voice hardened. "Pride's a luxury we can't afford, Emma, not now." The following morning, true to his word, Owen Steele arrived at the Olivia homestead. He'd exchanged his church clothes for practical work attire, denim trousers, a faded blue shirt, and well-worn boots. His dark hair was damp from washing, and he'd carefully trimmed his beard. Emma answered his knock, her red-rimmed eyes evidence of a sleepless night. Still, she stood tall, her honey-brown hair neatly braided, wearing a simple dress that did little to disguise her pregnancy. "Mr. Steele," she greeted formally. "Miss Olivia." He removed his hat. "I hope I'm not intruding." She hesitated before stepping aside. "My father's in the workshop. Would you like me to fetch him? Actually, I came to speak with you." Owen remained on the porch. "Perhaps we could talk out here." Emma nodded, closing the door behind her and taking a seat on the wooden bench. Owen joined her, keeping a respectful distance. "I meant what I said yesterday," he began without preamble. "I want to help you." "Why?" Emma's direct question caught him off guard. "You barely know me, Mr. Steele." Owen considered his words carefully. "I know what it's like to face hardship alone. When Sarah, my wife, died, I thought the world had ended." His fingers tightened around the brim of his hat. "But I learned that surviving means accepting help sometimes." Emma's eyes softened slightly. "I heard about your wife. I'm sorry for your loss." "It was 3 years ago." Owen's voice remained steady, though the pain in his eyes belied his calm demeanor. "Time passes, but I know the fear you're feeling about the baby, about facing the future alone. And what exactly are you proposing?" Emma asked. "Charity visits, food baskets." Owen met her gaze directly. "A job, room and board at my ranch. I need someone to keep house cooking, cleaning, mending. My current housekeeper, Mrs. Abernathy, is returning to Missouri next month to care for her ailing sister." Emma's surprise was evident. "You'd hire me, in my condition?" "Your condition makes you no less capable," Owen replied. "The ranch house is spacious. You'd have your own room, privacy. After the baby comes, we can adjust your duties accordingly." He leaned forward slightly. "It's honest work, Miss Olivia, and you'd be away from the town gossips." The mention of gossip made Emma flinch. Already that morning, she'd seen neighbors peeking through curtains as she hung laundry. Preston's abandonment had transformed her overnight from a respected young woman to a cautionary tale. What about my father? He's welcome too, though I understand he has his business here. Owen set his hat on the bench between them. I don't expect an answer today, think on it. Emma studied the man beside her. Owen Steele was not classically handsome like Preston, but his features held a strength and character that Preston's never had. The creases at the corners of his eyes spoke of both hardship and laughter. His hands, resting on his knees, were those of a man who worked alongside his ranch hands rather than merely directing them. People will talk, she said finally. They'll assume. Let them, Owen replied with a shrug. Words only have the power we give them. Their conversation was interrupted by George Olivia emerging from his workshop, wiping sawdust from his hands. Mr. Steele, he called, approaching the porch. Good to see you. Owen stood, extending his hand. Mr. Olivia, I was just discussing a business proposition with your daughter. As Owen explained his offer, George's expression shifted from skepticism to thoughtful consideration. It's generous, he acknowledged, but Emma's never been away from home. Pa, I'm hardly a child, Emma protested. No, you're not, George agreed, his eyes softening as they rested on his daughter. You're a woman who's had to grow up too fast. He turned to Owen. When would you need her to start? Mrs. Abernathy leaves in 2 weeks. That would give Emma time to prepare and settle in before taking over the duties. George nodded slowly. I'll need to see this ranch of yours before I agree to anything. Of course, Owen replied. Come Sunday, stay for dinner, meet my foreman and his wife, they live on the property as well. You'll see it's a respectable situation. After Owen departed, Emma and her father sat in silence for several moments. Finally, George spoke. You don't have to do this, Emma, we can manage. Emma placed her hand over her growing belly. Can we, Pa? Winter will be here before we know it. A baby needs things, clothes, blankets, medicine sometimes. She looked toward the horizon, where she could just make out Owen's retreating figure on horseback. And maybe it would be good to be somewhere people don't look at me the way they do now. The following Sunday dawned clear and cool, a welcome respite from the summer heat. Emma wore her best dress, a blue cotton that had required letting out to accommodate her expanding waistline, and her father hitched their wagon before the sun had fully risen. It's nearly 15 miles, George reminded her. We'll need an early start to get there and back before dark. The journey took them through the rugged beauty of northern New Mexico, skirting the edge of the Sangre de Cristo Mountains. Emma found herself relaxing as they left Cimarron behind, the crisp air and sweeping vistas working a subtle magic on her troubled spirit. Broken Arrow Ranch announced itself with a well-constructed arch over the main road, the brand and arrow snapped in the center burned into the wood. As they passed beneath it, Emma caught her first glimpse of what might become her new home. The ranch house stood on a gentle rise, a sprawling 2-story structure built of sturdy logs and stone. A wide porch wrapped around the front, dotted with rocking chairs and flowering plants in barrels. Behind and to the sides spread the working ranch bunkhouse, barn, corrals, and beyond them, pastureland where cattle grazed. Owen emerged from the barn as they approached, raising a hand in greeting. He was dressed similarly to their last meeting, though his shirt was newer, his boots polished. He helped Emma down from the wagon with gentle hands. Welcome to Broken Arrow, he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners. Was the journey comfortable? Very, Emma replied, suddenly aware of how close he stood, the clean scent of soap and leather surrounding him. Your ranch is impressive. Been building it for 8 years now, Owen said with understated pride. Started with 40 acres and a dozen head of cattle. Now we're running close to 800 head on 4,000 acres. He gestured toward the house. Mrs. Abernathy has coffee waiting. After you've rested, I'll show you around. The interior of the ranch house surprised Emma. While undeniably masculine in its furnishings, heavy oak tables, leather chairs, practical rugs, it possessed an unexpected warmth. Bookshelves lined one wall of the sitting room, well stocked with volumes ranging from practical ranching manuals to poetry collections. Large windows captured the mountain views, and a stone fireplace dominated the far wall. Mrs. Abernathy, a plump woman in her 60s with iron gray hair and kind eyes, welcomed them effusively. It's about time some youth came to brighten this place, she declared, ushering Emma to the most comfortable chair. Mr. Steele works from dawn to dusk, never taking time for pleasantries. Mrs. Abernathy exaggerates, Owen said with a tolerant smile. She's convinced I need civilizing influence. And don't you? The older woman retorted, pouring coffee into delicate china cups that seemed at odds with the rustic surroundings. A man alone grows wild around the edges. After refreshments, Owen led them on a tour of the property. The kitchen was spacious and well-equipped, with a large cook stove, ample pantry, and a pump bringing water directly inside, a luxury Emma had not expected. Mrs. Abernathy supervises 2 meals a day for the ranch hands, Owen explained. Breakfast and dinner, they take lunch in the fields during busy seasons. How many hands do you employ? George asked, 8 full-time, more during roundup and branding. Owen led them upstairs to a hallway with several doors. This would be your room, Emma. The bedroom was larger than her current one, with a comfortable-looking bed, dresser, washstand, and a small desk beneath the window. Handmade curtains in a cheerful yellow print framed a view of the mountains. It's lovely, Emma said softly, imagining herself in this space. The room next door is empty, Owen continued. Could be set up for the baby when the time comes. He hesitated. Or if you prefer to have the child closer, there's plenty of space in here for a cradle. The thoughtfulness of his consideration touched Emma deeply. Preston had never once spoken of practical arrangements for their child, seemingly content to leave such matters to her. They continued the tour, meeting Miguel Ramirez and his wife Lucia in the kitchen garden. The Mexican couple had been with Owen since the ranch's beginning, Miguel overseeing the daily operations while Lucia tended the vegetable garden and henhouse. "It is good to meet you," Lucia said warmly, her English accented but clear. "Mr. Steele has told us of your situation." "You will be welcome here." Emma felt her cheeks flush. "He told you." "That you need a fresh start," Miguel interrupted smoothly. "That is all we need to know." Over dinner, a hearty beef stew with fresh baked bread conversation flowed easily. Owen revealed himself to be well informed on topics ranging from territorial politics to literature, engaging George in a discussion about the merits of different woods for furniture making. As the meal concluded, Owen broached the subject directly. "Have you given thought to my offer, Miss Olivia?" Emma glanced at her father, who nodded almost imperceptibly. "I have," she replied, "and if you're certain, I'd like to accept the position." Relief flickered across Owen's features. "I'm certain. We can arrange for your belongings to be brought over next weekend if that suits." As they prepared to leave, Owen walked them to their wagon. The sun was beginning its descent, painting the landscape in gold and amber hues. "I believe this arrangement will benefit us both," he told Emma quietly. "You need security and I need—" He paused. "Well, Mrs. Abernathy isn't wrong about this place needing a woman's touch." On the journey home, George was uncharacteristically silent until they were halfway back to Cimarron. "He's a good man," he said finally. "I can see that plain enough." "He's my employer," Emma reminded him. "Nothing more." George gave her a sidelong glance. "For now, perhaps, but I saw how he looks at you, Emma." "Don't be ridiculous," she protested. "He's being kind, that's all. No man wants a woman carrying another man's child." "You might be surprised," her father replied cryptically. Life takes unexpected turns sometimes. The following 2 weeks passed in a flurry of preparation. Emma packed her modest belongings, sewed new curtains for her father's house, and prepared meals that could be easily reheated during her absence. She also endured the whispers and stares of Cimarron's residents, many of whom seemed to delight in her fall from grace. Jasmine Cooper, the sheriff's sister and town beauty, confronted her outside the general store 3 days before her departure. "So you've snared Owen Steele," she said, her voice carrying to nearby shoppers. "Clever girl, using your condition to gain his sympathy." Emma straightened her shoulders. "Mr. Steele has offered me employment, Miss Cooper, nothing more." Jasmine's perfectly arched eyebrow rose. "Is that what they're calling it these days?" She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Everyone knows his weakness for damsels in distress. Just don't mistake charity for affection." The words stung more than Emma cared to admit. She had found herself thinking of Owen frequently, his quiet strength, the genuine concern in his eyes, the gentle way he'd helped her from the wagon. But she wasn't foolish enough to imagine romantic interest. A man like Owen Steele could have his pick of women. He wouldn't choose one already carrying another man's child. On Saturday morning, Owen arrived with a wagon for Emma's belongings. He worked alongside George, loading the trunk containing her clothing, a small rocking chair that had been her mother's, and several quilts she had made over the years. "I thought we might stop by the mercantile on our way," Owen suggested as they prepared to depart. "If there's anything you need for your comfort," Emma hesitated. "I haven't been in since the wedding day," understanding dawned in Owen's eyes. "The Williams family doesn't deserve your business anyway. We can stop in Santa Fe next time I make a supply run." The farewell with her father was tearful despite Emma's attempts at composure. "It's only 15 miles, Pa," she reminded him, wiping her eyes, "and you'll visit." "Every Sunday," George promised, embracing her carefully, "and if you need me sooner, send word, I'll come." As they pulled away, Emma fought the urge to look back. She was embarking on a new chapter, however uncertain. The child within her stirred, a reminder of both her failure and her determination to create a better future. "Your father's a good man," Owen commented as they left town behind. "He's worried about you." "He needn't be," Emma replied. "I'm stronger than I look." Owen's eyes crinkled. "That, Miss Olivia, I have no doubt about." The first week at Broken Arrow passed in a blur of activity as Mrs. Abernathy instructed Emma in the workings of the ranch house. There were meals to plan for the ranch hands, bread to bake, laundry to supervise, and countless other tasks that kept the household functioning. "Mr. Steele likes his coffee strong," Mrs. Abernathy advised. "And don't bother with fancy dishes, simple, hearty food is what he prefers. Save your efforts for Sunday dinner when he sometimes invites neighbors." Emma discovered that Owen ate breakfast before dawn and often missed midday meals entirely, appearing only for dinner, usually tired and dust covered from the day's work. He was unfailingly polite, but maintained a certain reserve that left her wondering if he regretted his impulsive offer. On her 5th evening at the ranch, Emma was sitting on the front porch, enjoying the sunset and the slight relief from the day's heat, when Owen emerged from the barn. He spotted her and changed direction, approaching the porch with a slight hesitation in his stride. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, removing his hat. "Of course not," Emma replied, gesturing to the chair beside hers. "It's your porch." Owen settled into the chair with a tired sigh. "It's your home now too, Emma." It was the first time he had used her given name, and something in his voice made her look at him sharply. "At least for as long as you wish it to be. You've been very kind," she began, but Owen shook his head. "Not kindness, selfishness, perhaps." Emma's brow furrowed. "I don't understand." Owen leaned forward, elbows on his knees, staring out at the purpling horizon. "This ranch, it's everything I've worked for. But lately I've found myself wondering what it's all for. Empty rooms, silent meals." His voice lowered. "After Sarah died, I thought I wanted solitude. Now I'm not so sure." "Mrs. Abernathy mentioned your wife," Emma said carefully. "She said it was during childbirth." Pain flickered across Owen's features. "She was 7 months along. There was bleeding. The doctor couldn't stop it." His hands clenched. "I lost them both in a single night." "I'm so sorry," Emma whispered, instinctively reaching out to touch his arm. Owen covered her hand with his own. "When I saw you standing in that church, abandoned but still standing tall, I admired your courage." His blue eyes met hers. "And I recognized your fear." The moment stretched between them, fraught with unspoken emotions. Finally, Owen stood, breaking the spell. "It's getting chilly. You shouldn't stay out much longer in your condition." As Mrs. Abernathy's departure date approached, Emma found herself increasingly comfortable with her role at Broken Arrow. The ranch hands, initially wary, had accepted her presence, especially after her first Sunday dinner of roast beef, mashed potatoes, and apple pie. "The men are half in love with you already," Owen remarked after that meal, helping her clear the dishes despite her protests. "Miguel says work output has improved since you arrived." Emma laughed, a sound that had become more frequent in recent days. The way to a man's heart is through his stomach, my mother always said. She was a wise woman, Owen replied, his eyes lingering on Emma's face. The day before Mrs. Abernathy's departure, a thunderstorm swept through the valley, bringing welcome rain but dangerous lightning. Emma was kneading bread dough when she heard shouts from outside, followed by the clatter of hooves. Lightning struck near the north pasture, Lucia reported, rushing into the kitchen. The men have gone to check for fires and scattered cattle. Hours passed with no word. As darkness fell, Emma paced the sitting room, periodically peering through the rain-streaked windows for any sign of the men. When the door finally burst open around midnight, Owen and Miguel entered, drenched and exhausted. "The herd's safe," Owen announced, removing his dripping hat. "But we lost the north boundary fence. Lightning struck an old cottonwood and it fell across the wire." "You're soaked through," Emma exclaimed, hurrying to help him with his coat. "You'll catch your death. Sit by the fire while I fetch dry clothes and something hot to drink." Owen caught her arm as she turned away. "We're fine, Emma, don't fuss." "It's not fussing, it's common sense," she retorted, pulling free. "Now sit down before you collapse." To her surprise, Owen obeyed, sinking into a chair by the fire. Miguel, hiding a smile, excused himself to return to his own cabin where Lucia waited. When Emma returned with coffee and a towel, she found Owen with his head tilted back, eyes closed. For a moment, she studied him unobserved, the strong line of his jaw beneath his beard, the tiny scar above his right eyebrow, the way his wet shirt clung to the muscles of his chest and shoulders. "I can feel you staring," he said without opening his eyes. Emma flushed, grateful he couldn't see her embarrassment. "I was wondering if you'd fallen asleep," she lied, handing him the towel. "Your coffee's on the table." Owen opened his eyes, regarding her with a warmth that made her breath catch. "You worry too much." "And you too little," she countered. "What good will you be to this ranch if you fall ill?" A smile played at the corners of his mouth. "Is that concern I hear, Miss Olivia?" "Professional concern," Emma insisted. "For my employer." Owen's smile widened as he took a sip of coffee. "Of course. Strictly professional." The morning of Mrs. Abernathy's departure brought a surprise visitor. Emma was in the kitchen preparing breakfast when the sound of an approaching wagon drew her attention. Peering through the window, she froze at the sight of her father's wagon coming up the drive, a second figure beside him. "Pa," she called, hurrying onto the porch. "Is everything all right?" George Olivia helped his companion down from the wagon, a woman in her 40s with streaks of gray in her dark hair and a kind, worried face. "Emma," he said, his voice strained. "This is Mrs. Williams, Preston's mother." Helen Williams approached the porch slowly, her hands twisting nervously in her shawl. "Miss Olivia," she began, "I know this is unexpected. What are you doing here?" Emma demanded, one hand protectively covering her belly. "Please," Mrs. Williams pleaded, "just a few minutes of your time." "I've come about Preston, about the baby." Before Emma could respond, Owen emerged from the barn, his expression darkening as he took in the scene. He crossed to the porch in long strides, positioning himself slightly in front of Emma. "Mrs. Williams," he greeted coolly, "this is a surprise." Helen Williams faltered under his steady gaze. "Mr. Steele, I didn't realize Emma was staying here. The town gossip suggested as much, but I couldn't believe." "My daughter is employed here," George interrupted firmly, "as Mr. Steele's housekeeper." "Of course, Mrs." Williams murmured, though her expression remained doubtful. "Mr. Steele, might I speak with Emma privately? It's a family matter." Owen turned to Emma, his expression softening. "That's up to Miss Olivia." Emma straightened her shoulders. "Whatever you have to say, Mrs. Williams, you can say it here." The older woman sighed. "Very well, I've had a letter from Preston. He's in Denver." She pulled an envelope from her pocket. "He wanted me to give you this, and he sent money for the baby." Emma stared at the envelope as if it might burn her. "Money." $200, Mrs. Williams confirmed. "He says it's to help with expenses. He feels terrible about what happened, Emma. He panicked." Owen made a sound of disgust. "Panicked? He abandoned a pregnant woman at the altar. That's not panic, it's cowardice." Mrs. Williams flinched. I'm not defending his actions, Mr. Steele, but he is trying to make amends in his way. By sending money instead of facing his responsibilities. Owen's voice remained controlled, but Emma could sense his anger. That's not making amends, that's easing his conscience. Please, Emma interjected, finally reaching for the letter. I'd like to read what he has to say. The small group moved into the house, where Emma broke the seal on the envelope with trembling fingers. Preston's familiar handwriting covered a single page. Emma, I know nothing I say can make right what I've done. Fear got the better of me, fear of fatherhood, of responsibility, of being trapped in Cimarron forever. I thought I was ready, but when the day came, I couldn't go through with it. The money enclosed is all I have right now. I've found work with a newspaper in Denver. As I earn more, I'll send additional funds for the child's care. It's not enough, I know that, but it's what I can offer. I won't ask your forgiveness, I don't deserve it. But please believe I never meant to cause you such pain. Preston Emma folded the letter slowly, her emotions a tangled mess. Part of her wanted to tear the paper to shreds, to refuse his belated, inadequate offering. Another part recognized that the money would provide for her child clothes, food, medicine if needed. What will you do? Her father asked gently. Emma looked up, her gaze moving from her father to Mrs. Williams and finally settling on Owen, who stood by the window, his expression unreadable. The money is for my child, she said finally. I'll accept it for that purpose alone, but I want nothing else from Preston Williams. Mrs. Williams nodded sadly. I understand, and for what it's worth, I'm ashamed of my son's behavior. You deserved better, Emma. After the visitors departed, Mrs. Williams returning to town, George staying for lunch before heading home, Emma found herself alone with Owen in the sitting room. The envelope containing Preston's money sat on the table between them, a tangible reminder of her past. You don't have to keep it, Owen said quietly. You and your child will want for nothing here. Emma met his gaze. It's not about need, it's about responsibility. This is the only thing Preston is willing to give his child. I have no right to refuse it. Owen considered this, then nodded slowly. You're a remarkable woman, Emma Olivia. Hardly, she replied with a self-deprecating laugh. A remarkable woman wouldn't have found herself in my position to begin with. Is that what you think? Owen leaned forward, his expression intense. That your situation reflects some failure on your part. Emma, you loved a man who proved unworthy of that love. The failure is his, not yours. His words washed over her like a healing balm, easing a pain she had carried since that day in the church. Thank you, she whispered, for everything. Owen's hand moved toward hers, then hesitated. I should check on the men, he said abruptly, standing. Miguel was repairing that fence today. As August gave way to September, Emma's pregnancy advanced noticeably. Her dresses grew tight across her expanding belly, and she found herself tiring more easily. Owen noticed her fatigue one evening as she served dinner, nearly dropping a platter of sliced beef. You're doing too much, he observed, taking the platter from her hands. You need rest. I'm perfectly fine, Emma protested, even as she sank gratefully into a chair. Stubbornness must run in the Olivia family, Owen remarked dryly. Tomorrow I'm riding into Santa Fe for supplies. I'd like you to come along. There's a dressmaker there who can outfit you properly for the remainder of your confinement. Emma bristled at his authoritative tone. I don't need charity, Mr. Steele. It's not charity when I'm merely ensuring my housekeeper can perform her duties comfortably, Owen replied smoothly. Consider it a business expense. The journey to Santa Fe the next day was the furthest Emma had traveled since arriving at Broken Arrow. The territorial capital bustled with activity: traders, soldiers from the nearby fort, local residents, and visitors from the surrounding ranches and pueblos. Owen helped her down from the wagon in front of a modest shop with Madame Beaumont dressmaker painted on the window. Lucia recommended her, he explained, said she's discreet and skilled with special circumstances. The French dressmaker proved to be a middle-aged woman with nimble fingers and a pragmatic attitude. Pregnancies are not scandals, they are natural conditions, she declared, measuring Emma efficiently. I will make you 3 dresses that will accommodate your changing form and can be altered afterward. Simple but pretty a woman should feel beautiful, especially now. While Emma was fitted, Owen conducted his business around town, returning with a wagon loaded with supplies and several mysterious packages he refused to let her examine. "You'll see soon enough," was all he would say. On the return journey, they stopped by a stream to rest the horses and eat the lunch Lucia had packed. Emma spread a blanket beneath a cottonwood tree, grateful for the shade against the September sun. "This is beautiful country," she remarked, gazing at the distant mountains. "I've lived in the territory for 11 years, but I've seen so little of it." Owen settled beside her, stretching his long legs out before him. "There's much to see within a day's ride of the ranch. When you're feeling stronger, perhaps we could explore some of it." The casual suggestion carried an intimacy that made Emma's heart flutter unexpectedly. "I'd like that," she replied softly. They ate in companionable silence for several minutes before Owen spoke again. "There's something I've been meaning to discuss with you." His tone had grown serious. "About your plans after the baby comes." Emma tensed. "Are you concerned about my ability to fulfill my duties?" "No, nothing like that," Owen assured her quickly. "I'm thinking of the child's future, his or her place at Broken Arrow." "I don't understand." Owen chose his words carefully. "Children need stability, security, a name that protects them from unkindness." He met her puzzled gaze directly. "I'm offering to give your child my name, Emma." She stared at him, uncomprehending for a moment. "You're proposing marriage, a marriage of convenience," Owen clarified. "Your child would be born a Steele with all the protection that entails. No one would dare whisper bastard or illegitimate about my acknowledged heir." "Heir," Emma echoed faintly. "I have no children of my own," Owen continued. "No family besides distant cousins back east who have no interest in ranching. Broken Arrow needs a future beyond me," his expression softened, "and you need security beyond what employment can provide." Emma struggled to process his words. "This is unexpected." "You needn't answer now," Owen said quickly. "Think about it. Talk to your father if you wish, but know the offer is sincere and without conditions." He hesitated. "We could have separate rooms if you prefer, at least initially. I would never presume." "Why?" Emma interrupted. "Why would you do this for me, for us?" Owen's eyes held hers, unwaveringly honest. "Because in the weeks you've been at Broken Arrow, the ranch has become a home again. Because you deserve better than the hand life has dealt you. Because your child deserves a father who will be present." He paused. "And because I've grown to care for you, Emma Olivia, more than I expected. More than I thought possible after Sarah." The world seemed to still around them, the stream's gentle murmur, the rustle of leaves overhead, the distant call of a hawk all fading as Emma absorbed his words. This man who had come to her rescue at her lowest moment was now offering a future she had never dared imagine. "I need time," she whispered finally. "Take all the time you need," Owen replied, rising and extending his hand to help her up. "The offer stands." The return journey passed in thoughtful silence, both lost in contemplation of the future that hung in the balance. As they approached Broken Arrow, Emma noticed unusual activity near the barn. Several ranch hands gathered around what appeared to be a partially constructed wooden structure. "What's that?" she asked, momentarily distracted from her swirling thoughts. Owen smiled, the tension of their earlier conversation easing. "One of my purchases in Santa Fe. It arrived last week." As they drew closer, Emma could see it was a cradle beautifully crafted of polished oak, with intricate carvings along the sides. "It's beautiful," she breathed as Owen helped her down. One of the ranch hands was attaching a small mobile of carved wooden animals above where the baby would lie. "Every child at Broken Arrow should have a proper place to sleep," Owen said simply. That night, alone in her room, Emma considered Owen's proposal from every angle. Marriage to him would provide security for her child, a name, a home, an inheritance. The ranch hands respected him, the neighboring families held him in high regard. Any child would be fortunate to call him father, but what of her own feelings? Emma placed a hand on her stomach, feeling the baby shift beneath her palm. In the weeks at Broken Arrow, she had come to admire Owen's quiet strength, his unwavering integrity, his thoughtfulness. When he entered a room, her heart beat faster. When he smiled, warmth spread through her entire being. Was it possible she was falling in love with him? Or was she merely grateful for his kindness when she needed it most? The following Sunday, her father visited as promised. After dinner, while Owen met with Miguel about ranch business, Emma led George to the stream where Owen had made his proposal. "He's asked me to marry him," she said without preamble. George's eyebrows rose, but he didn't seem entirely surprised. "For the child's sake, partly," Emma acknowledged, "but he says he's come to care for me." Her father studied her face. "And you, how do you feel about him?" "I don't know," Emma admitted. "After Preston, I'm afraid to trust my own judgment." George took her hands in his weathered ones. "Emma, look at me. Owen Steele is nothing like Preston Williams. One ran from responsibility, the other embraces it. One made promises he never intended to keep, the other makes few promises but honors each one." He squeezed her fingers gently. "But only you can decide if that's enough for a lifetime. What if I make another mistake? Then you'll face it," her father said simply. "But staying safe sometimes means missing the greatest joys life has to offer." That evening, after her father departed, Emma found Owen on the porch, smoking a rare cigar as he watched the sunset. She settled into the chair beside him, gathering her courage. "I've been thinking about your proposal," she began. Owen turned to face her, his expression carefully neutral. "And I have questions," Emma said. "If we married, would you want more children, children of your own blood?" "Any child you bring into this world would be mine in every way that matters," Owen replied without hesitation. "But yes, in time, if you were willing, I would welcome more children." Emma nodded slowly. "And us, what would you expect?" Owen extinguished his cigar, choosing his words with care. "I would hope that in time affection might grow between us, that we might become true partners in all ways." His blue eyes met hers steadily. "But I would never demand what you couldn't freely give, Emma." The sincerity in his voice touched something deep within her. This was a man who had known profound loss, yet remained capable of offering his heart again. A man who had seen her at her most vulnerable and responded not with pity but with respect. "I accept," she said softly. "I will marry you, Owen." Joy illuminated his features, transforming him in the golden light of sunset. "You won't regret this, Emma, I promise you that." He reached for her hand, bringing it to his lips in a gesture that sent a shiver through her. "We'll be married as soon as the arrangements can be made. A small ceremony, perhaps at your father's house." "I'd like that," Emma agreed, suddenly shy beneath the intensity of his gaze. "No church this time." Owen's thumb traced circles on her palm. "No churches," he confirmed. "Just us, your father, and a few friends, a new beginning." The wedding took place 2 weeks later on a crisp October morning. George Olivia had transformed his workshop into a space befitting the occasion, with wild flowers and ribbons decorating the normally practical room. The town minister, initially hesitant about performing the ceremony given Emma's condition, had been swayed by Owen's quiet but firm insistence. Emma wore one of the new dresses from Madame Beaumont, a dove-gray silk that somehow managed to make her 6-month pregnancy look elegant rather than cumbersome. Owen had arranged for Lucia to do her hair, woven with small white flowers and pulled back from her face. The ceremony itself was brief but meaningful. Owen, dressed in a new black suit, watched Emma approach on her father's arm with an expression of such tender admiration that her lingering doubts melted away. When he spoke his vows to honor, cherish, and protect, his voice rang with conviction. "I take you as my wife, Emma Olivia," he concluded, sliding a simple gold band onto her finger. "From this day forward, until my last breath." The small gathering celebrated afterward with a meal prepared by Lucia and Mrs. Cooper, the sheriff's mother, who had taken a liking to Emma despite her daughter's resentment. There was no dancing given Emma's condition, but there was music. One of the ranch hands played fiddle while another accompanied on harmonica. As afternoon faded into evening, the newlyweds prepared to return to Broken Arrow. George embraced his daughter tightly, whispering, "Your mother would be proud of the woman you've become." The journey home, and Emma now truly thought of the ranch as home, passed in companionable conversation. Owen spoke of his plans for the coming winter, his hopes for expanding the herd in spring, and his ideas for improvements to the house. "The east bedroom gets the morning sun," he remarked. "It would make a fine nursery." As darkness fell, they arrived at the ranch to find the house illuminated with lanterns. A congratulations banner stretched across the porch, and the ranch hands waiting to welcome them with good-natured cheers. "Mrs. Steele," Miguel called the first to use her new name. "Welcome home." Later, after the impromptu celebration had wound down, Emma found herself alone with her husband for the first time. Owen had insisted on carrying her over the threshold despite her protests about her weight, setting her down gently in the sitting room that now seemed transformed by their changed relationship. "Are you tired?" he asked solicitously. "You should rest." Emma shook her head. "I'm fine." She hesitated, suddenly uncertain of the protocol between them. "Should I? That is, would you like me to move my things to your room?" Owen's expression softened. "Only if you wish it, Emma. I meant what I said. I'll never rush you." Meeting his gaze, Emma made her decision. "I'd like to start our marriage as it should be," she said quietly. "Together." The tenderness with which Owen kissed her, then his first real kiss beyond the brief one that had sealed their vows, awakened something in Emma she had never experienced with Preston. This wasn't the hasty passion that had led to her current condition, but something deeper, more profound, a connection of souls as much as bodies. That night, Owen proved himself as considerate a lover as he was a man, attentive to her comfort and mindful of her pregnancy. When Emma woke the next morning in his arms, sunlight streaming through the curtains, she felt a contentment she had never known before. November brought the first significant snowfall, transforming Broken Arrow into a winter wonderland. Emma, now 7 months pregnant and moving with increasing difficulty, found herself grateful for Owen's insistence on hiring a young woman from a neighboring ranch to help with the heavier household tasks. "I'm not an invalid," she protested one evening as Owen insisted on rubbing her swollen feet. "No, you're my wife," he replied, his skilled fingers easing her discomfort, "and the mother of my child. Let me do this for you." The words "my child" warmed Emma's heart. From the moment they had married, Owen had referred to her baby as his, without hesitation or qualification. He had spent evenings assembling the cradle, crafting a rocking chair to match it, and reading books on childcare borrowed from the doctor in Cimarron. As Christmas approached, Owen surprised Emma with an evergreen tree cut from the higher elevations of the ranch property. Together, they decorated it with ornaments he had stored away after Sarah's death, along with new ones Emma created from scraps of fabric and ribbon. "This will be our first Christmas together," Owen remarked as they worked. "The first of many." Emma placed a hand on her rounded belly. "And next year there will be 3 of us." Owen's expression grew serious. "Emma, there's something I need to tell you." He guided her to the sofa, sitting beside her and taking her hands in his. "When Sarah died, when we lost our baby, I wasn't sure I could ever open myself to that kind of pain again." Emma squeezed his hands encouragingly. "I understand. But these past months with you," he continued, "have shown me that closing oneself off from love is its own kind of death." His blue eyes held hers intently. "I married you for many reasons: to give your child a name, to provide you both security, because I admired your courage and strength." "I know," Emma whispered. "What I'm trying to say," Owen said, his voice rough with emotion, "is that somewhere along the way, admiration became something deeper. I love you, Emma Steele, not out of duty or obligation, but with my whole heart." Joy bloomed within her like a desert flower after rain. "Owen, her words were cut short by a sharp pain that made her gasp. Owen's expression instantly shifted to concern. "Emma, what is it?" "Nothing," she assured him, breathing through the discomfort. "The baby kicked, that's all." But as the evening progressed, the pains returned with increasing frequency. By midnight, there was no denying what was happening. "The baby's coming," Emma whispered, fear evident in her voice. "It's too early." Owen's face paled, but his voice remained steady. "I'll send for the doctor. Miguel can be in Cimarron in 2 hours." The next 12 hours passed in a blur of pain and fear for Emma. Dr. Mason arrived shortly after dawn, his face grave as he examined her. The baby is determined to arrive, he told them. 2 months early, but there's nothing to be done about it now. Owen refused to leave Emma's side, holding her hand through each contraction, wiping her brow, murmuring encouragement. When her strength flagged, his remained unwavering. "You can do this," he told her repeatedly. "You're the strongest woman I know." As the winter sun began its early descent, Emma's labor intensified. "I can't," she sobbed after a particularly brutal contraction. "Owen, I can't do this." "You can," he insisted, his face lined with worry but his voice firm. "Our child needs you to be strong for just a little longer." The word "our" gave Emma renewed determination. With a final, tremendous effort, she brought their child into the world, a tiny, fragile son with a shock of dark hair and lungs that proved surprisingly robust as he announced his arrival with a piercing cry. "A boy," Dr. Mason announced, quickly wrapping the infant in warm blankets. "Small, but he seems strong." Owen's eyes filled with tears as he looked down at the tiny red face. "He's perfect," he whispered. "Emma, he's perfect." Dr. Mason's expression remained cautious. "He's early, Mr. Steele. The next few days will be critical. Keep him warm, feed him often if Mrs. Steele is able." Emma reached for her son with trembling arms. "Let me hold him." The moment the small bundle was placed against her chest, a fierce, overwhelming love surged through her. This was her child, hers and Owen's now, regardless of blood. "Hello, little one," she murmured. "We've been waiting for you." Owen sat beside them on the bed, one arm around Emma, the other gently touching their son's cheek. "What shall we call him?" Emma studied the tiny face, remembering her father's words about her mother. "George," she said softly. "George Thomas Steele." "A fine name," Owen agreed, his voice thick with emotion. "For a fine boy who's going to grow into a strong man." The days that followed tested them severely. Little George struggled to nurse, requiring Emma to express milk that Owen or Lucia would feed him with a medicine dropper. He slept fitfully, his tiny body working hard simply to maintain warmth and growth. During the darkest hours, when Emma's exhaustion threatened to overwhelm her, Owen would take the baby, walking the floors with him tucked against his chest, singing softly until both child and mother could rest. A week passed, then two. Gradually, George began to thrive, gaining weight and strength with each passing day. By Christmas Eve, he had developed a healthy appetite and could remain awake for longer periods, his dark eyes seeming to study the world around him with solemn curiosity. "He looks like you," Emma remarked as they sat before the fire, George sleeping peacefully in Owen's arms. Around the eyes and mouth, Owen smiled. "I was thinking he favors you, that determined little chin." The moment was interrupted by a knock at the door. Miguel entered, snow dusting his shoulders. "Riders coming," he reported. "Looks like your father, Mrs. Steele, and another wagon behind him." George Olivia arrived bearing gifts and news. "Half the town's talking about the early arrival of the Steele heir," he reported, cradling his grandson with practiced ease. "Sheriff Cooper asked me to convey his congratulations." The second wagon contained a surprise Helen Williams, bearing a wooden chest filled with baby clothes, blankets, and toys. "I hope it's not presumptuous," she said hesitantly. "When I heard the baby had come early." Emma, watching from the doorway, felt Owen tense beside her. She placed a calming hand on his arm. "It's very kind of you, Mrs. Williams," she said. "Thank you." The older woman approached cautiously, her eyes on the sleeping infant in George's arms. "May I see him?" Emma nodded, and George carefully transferred the baby to Mrs. Williams' waiting arms. "He's beautiful," she whispered, tears forming in her eyes. "What have you named him?" "George," Owen answered, his voice carefully neutral. "George Thomas Steele." Mrs. Williams nodded, a mixture of sadness and understanding in her expression. "A fine name." She returned the baby to Emma with gentle hands. "I won't intrude on your family time. I just wanted to bring these things. And to tell you that Preston has moved on to San Francisco. He won't be returning to the territory." After she departed, Emma found Owen on the porch, staring out at the snow-covered landscape. "Are you angry?" she asked, joining him. "That I accepted her gifts?" Owen shook his head. "No, you were right to do so." He turned to her, his expression softening. "You have a generous heart, Emma." It's one of the many things I love about you. Emma stepped closer, resting her head against his chest. I never answered you before George decided to make his early appearance. She looked up, meeting his gaze directly. I love you too, Owen Steele. Not out of gratitude or necessity, but because you are the finest man I've ever known. The kiss they shared then was filled with promise of nights and days to come, of a family growing together, of a love born in unexpected circumstances but no less profound for it. Spring arrived at Broken Arrow with an explosion of wildflowers and the arrival of new calves. George, now 4 months old, had overcome his early challenges to become a robust, cheerful baby with Owen's blue eyes and a dimple that appeared when he smiled. Emma, fully recovered from the difficult birth, had resumed most of her duties while adapting to motherhood. She often carried George in a sling Lucia had fashioned, allowing him to observe the workings of the ranch as she moved through her day. On a particularly fine April morning, Owen suggested a picnic. Just the 3 of us, he said, already packing bread, cheese, and apples into a saddlebag. There's a meadow about a mile east that's carpeted with bluebonnets right now. They rode double on Owen's favorite gelding, George securely nestled in the sling against Emma's chest, his eyes wide at this new adventure. The meadow proved even more spectacular than Owen had described, acres of blue flowers swaying in the gentle breeze, with scattered patches of Indian paintbrush adding splashes of red and orange. Owen spread a blanket beneath a lone cottonwood tree, helping Emma dismount with their precious cargo. As they settled onto the blanket, George waving his arms excitedly at the colorful surroundings, Owen reached into his pocket. "I have something for you," he said, producing a small leather pouch. "I meant to give it to you at Christmas, but with George's early arrival." Emma opened the pouch to find a gold locket on a delicate chain. Inside was a tiny portrait of Owen on one side, the other empty. "It's beautiful," she breathed. "The empty side is for George," Owen explained, taking the necklace and fastening it around her neck. "Miguel's cousin in Santa Fe is a photographer. We can have his portrait made next time we're there." Emma fingered the locket, deeply touched by his thoughtfulness. "I have something for you too," she said softly, "though it won't arrive for some months yet." Owen's brow furrowed in confusion, then cleared as understanding dawned. "Emma, are you certain?" She nodded, a smile spreading across her face. "Dr. Mason confirmed it yesterday. Another little Steele will join us around Thanksgiving." Joy transformed Owen's features as he gathered her into his arms, careful not to squash George between them. "I am the most fortunate man in all of New Mexico territory," he declared. As they sat together in the meadow, their son contentedly examining a bluebonnet Emma had picked for him, she reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. The heartbreak at the church had seemed like the end of her world, but it had been merely a beginning, the first step on a path to true love and family. "What are you thinking?" Owen asked, noticing her thoughtful expression. Emma leaned against his shoulder, watching their son's eyelids grow heavy with approaching sleep. "I was thinking about that day in the church," she admitted, "how everything I thought I wanted slipped away in an instant." Owen's arm tightened around her. "Do you ever regret it?" "How things turned out, not for a moment," Emma replied without hesitation. "Preston's abandonment led me to you, to this life we're building." She placed her hand over her still flat stomach where their second child was just beginning to grow, "to our family." Owen's kiss was gentle but filled with promise. "Our family," he echoed, "the greatest blessing I never dared hope for." As the years passed, Broken Arrow flourished under the Steele's care. George grew into a sturdy boy with his father's love for ranching and his mother's kind heart. He was joined by a sister, Sarah Louise, born on a snowy Thanksgiving night, and later by twins William and James, who arrived in the spring of 1880. Emma never heard directly from Preston Williams again, though his mother remained a part of their lives, becoming Grandma Helen to all 4 Steele children despite the lack of blood connection. George Olivia eventually sold his carpentry business in Cimarron and moved to Broken Arrow, building a small cabin near the main house where he could enjoy his grandchildren while crafting rocking horses, dollhouses, and countless toys for their amusement. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Owen surprised Emma with a new wedding ring, a circle of diamonds, to replace the simple gold band she had worn since their hasty ceremony. "To honor each year and each child," he explained as he slipped it onto her finger. "And to remind you every day of my enduring love." Emma, her beauty only enhanced by the passing years and the joy of motherhood, returned his kiss with the same passion that had grown between them over their decade together. "I don't need reminders," she told him. "But I treasure the gesture all the same." That night, after the children were asleep, they sat on the porch swing Owen had built when George was learning to walk. The ranch spread before them, peaceful under the October moon, the tangible result of their shared labor and love. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Preston had appeared that day?" Owen asked, his fingers entwined with hers. "If he hadn't left you standing there?" Emma considered the question seriously. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But then I look at our children, at this home we've built, at the man beside me who has never once faltered in his devotion." She squeezed his hand. "And I know that what seemed like the worst day of my life was actually the first day of my true happiness." Owen's blue eyes, still as clear and honest as the day he'd knelt before her in the church, held hers with unwavering love. "When I said I'd be there for both of you, I had no idea what a gift I was being given." "We were both given a gift that day," Emma replied softly. "A second chance neither of us expected." As the stars emerged in the vast New Mexico sky, Owen and Emma Steele remained on their porch, hands clasped, hearts full, their love a testament to the unexpected ways life could bring together two souls meant to find each other against all odds. In the heart of the Wild West, they had forged something rare and precious, a family built not on obligation or convention, but on choice, courage, and abiding love. And in the years to come, the story of the pregnant bride abandoned at the altar, and the cowboy who stepped forward would become a cherished family legend, passed down through generations as proof that sometimes life's greatest blessings arrive in the midst of its deepest sorrows.